Okay, so we're diving deep today, right? And we're going to be looking at E.V. Ramasamy.
Yeah.
Or Periyar, as he's better known.
Right.
And this is fascinating to me. This guy Periyar, I mean, just from what I've seen already, he was a fascinating figure in Indian history. And
absolutely.
So you sent into this conversation between two people, and it's fictional, right?
Right.
But it really digs into like his life and the different policies that he was pushing for, and I'm really excited to kind of get into this and see what we can learn about his legacy. You know?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Periyar, he was a force.
Yeah.
You know, like a real force of nature. He was a social reformer, political leader, and I think what he's most known for are his radical views. And they were definitely radical for the time, especially when it comes to things like the caste system, right?
Right.
Gender equality, and even religion.
I was seeing that in the conversation.
Yeah.
One of the things that kind of jumped out at me was like this whole thing with Periyar leading this charge to allow people into temples, you know?
Right.
And it wasn't just about like disagreeing with the caste system.
Mm-hmm.
It was about like how the caste system was actually playing out in daily life.
Exactly. And that's what made him so different. He wasn't just an armchair revolutionary, you know?
Yeah.
He was really about pushing for change, like on the ground.
Yeah.
And these temple entry movements, they were a direct challenge to the social hierarchy that was so deeply ingrained. I mean, can you imagine? And then, then you see him doing things like promoting intercaste marriages and self-respect marriage. I mean, that's radical. These were unheard of at the time. He even encouraged marriages without the need for a Brahmin priest.
Wow.
Which, I mean, you can imagine how much that shook things up.
Yeah. He was really pushing boundaries. And it wasn't just with the caste system, right?
Right.
I mean, the conversation talks a lot about his advocacy for women's rights.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. He was so ahead of his time on that. I mean, decades ahead of his time.
Yeah.
He was talking about women's education. He was pushing for equal rights for women, even property rights for women. These were ideas that were just, revolutionary in the India of his time. And then he even goes further. He starts talking about birth control, widow remarriage.
Wow.
I mean, these were incredibly controversial things to be talking about back then.
Yeah. It really does make you think about how much society has changed and how much work people like Periyar put in to make those changes happen.
Yeah.
But, the source material doesn't shy away from some of the more controversial sides of his thinking. I mean, he was very outspoken in his atheism.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, absolutely. And you see that really clearly in the dialogue and the conversation where one of the characters, they quote one of his most famous lines. He said, "There is no God, there is no God, there is no God at all. He who invented God is a fool."
Yeah.
Like pretty strong stuff.
Yeah.
But it really speaks to his belief that religion was often used as a way to control people, especially those who were already marginalized.
Yeah. So we see him fighting against the caste system, advocating for women's rights, rejecting, these traditional religious ideas.
Yeah.
It's like he's trying to reshape the entire foundation of Indian society.
Absolutely.
And he did have a massive impact, especially in Tamil Nadu, right?
Absolutely. And that's, what's so interesting is that the conversation you sent, it even mentions the Dravidian movement.
Right.
Which for folks who aren't familiar, it was really about promoting the rights and the culture of Dravidian-speaking people in South India. And Periyar was like a core figure in that movement.
Yeah. Yeah. And from what I'm seeing here, it looks like that movement really shaped the political landscape in Tamil Nadu.
It did, without a doubt. And, you look at a lot of the policies that we see today, things like reservations, which were really meant to help those who are from lower castes, or the focus on women's rights, or just a generally more secular approach to governance. This is all rooted in Periyar's thinking. And even today, even today, his influence is clearly visible in how Tamil Nadu approaches social justice and equality.
Right.
But his legacies, it extends far beyond the state.
Yeah.
Across India, you see these social justice movements that are drawing inspiration from his work.
This has been an amazing look at a really complex and impactful.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for sending us this dialogue.
Oh, of course.
It's given us so much to think about.
It really has.
Yeah.
And as you're continuing to explore Periyar's ideas, just consider this. If his vision, right, of social justice and equality, if that had been more widely embraced, how might the world that we live in today be different?
That's a question worth pondering, and I have a feeling there's a lot more to learn about.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Sure.
Thanks for watching the podcast discussion about Periyar policies. If you like to listen different topics, please comment, like, share and subscribe our YouTube channel. Thanks.